Okay, today it's all about choosing citrus varieties. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you today. It is early morning, September 2019. So we're continuing our series today on what varieties we're choosing to put in the ground on the new farm. So today we're going to be focusing on citrus. Obviously we're here in Arizona, and this is one of just a handful of states in the United States that can actually grow citrus on a commercial scale. Our weather is almost ideal. In fact, I'd say it probably is ideal for citrus. So citrus generally does very, very well here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be focusing on exactly what varieties we're going to be choosing to put on the new farm, but also just covering citrus in general so that you can make a good choice, especially if you're here in Arizona, as to what citrus varieties to put in the ground. The first thing I want to do is focus on our two priorities that we have here on the farm as far as what varieties we decide to choose on. The first one would be productivity. We're going to be focusing on varieties that are very, very productive and proven producers as far as heavy production. That would be our priority number one. Priority number two would be low maintenance. We want to have trees that don't require a lot of input from us. We have a lot of fruit trees on this property. We have about 100 on that property. We're looking at probably about 150 to 200 different fruit trees. So we need to make sure that none of our fruit trees are going to require a lot of input from us. So let's go ahead and get started with oranges, which would be the one thing that I think most of us are most interested in. First thing would be what you see behind me here. There's a group of trees that are named after our state, and that would be your Arizona sweet varieties. What you see behind me here would be a Trivita Orange. Now there's a few different varieties. The Trivita is the only one that we've tried. You can see the tree behind me here. We've talked a little bit about this tree before. You can see it's struggling just a little bit. I'm confident that that's the rootstock that this is on. We're not going to talk about rootstocks today, but I do want to talk about the fruit itself. The fruit itself is a little bit on the small side, so it's not very large. However, it's extremely sweet. So it's a very, very good tasting variety. Definitely takes on that Arizona sweet moniker really, really well. Fantastic sweet fruit. Next tree behind me here would be a Valencia Orange. Again, there are multiple variety options within the Valencia category. This one is a Midnight Valencia. The fruit is very, very large. It's about the size of a grapefruit. Very, very big fruit. The fruit quality itself, I wouldn't say is quite as good as the Trivita. However, a very productive tree. There's dozens of fruit on here, and we really didn't need to do much in the way of thinning, so very low maintenance. So what you see behind me here would be a blood orange. We really like blood oranges. This particular tree is struggling a little bit because it's out here in just horrible soil. We have this at the front of the house, so we really have it more for looks than anything. However, at a couple years old, it's actually very, very productive. So as small as the tree is, it's probably got probably about a dozen fruit on it. At 2 years old in horrible soil, production-wise, already doing really, really well. So next up would be a Cara Orange. We really like this because it's basically a navel orange. Really looking forward to tasting this for the first time, if we're still here, but a very productive tree. So again, up here in the front of the house, horrible soil, a couple years old. You can see the tree's small, but it's got, I don't know, probably a couple dozen fruit on there. So have to definitely do some additional thinning on here we didn't realize, but a very good variety as well, your Cara Orange. So next category, which is very, very close to your oranges, would be Mandarins. So Mandarins, you'll see multiple varieties behind me here. Mandarins are nice because the trees themselves are more of a dwarf, semi-dwarf, even though a couple behind me here maybe look a little bigger. However, they're a little bit smaller, so we like to plant these kind of in bunches, which is what you see behind me here. Part of that is because it does offer a little bit of natural protection. Mandarins are actually originally from China, so that's really, of course, part of the name would be Mandarin, but they really do like that cooler weather. So heat of the summer can be a challenge sometimes with this particular type of fruit. However, let's talk about specific varieties. So first variety we want to talk about would be a Daisy Mandarin. You'll see that behind me here. Now, this tree is just incredible. Now, this is the one citrus variety that we actually purchased from Reed at RSI Growers. I'll link the video we did on his nursery here. That is our go-to nursery for citrus and for almost every fruit tree we're going to have, and this is why. This tree there's so much production, it's literally bowing the tree down. It's just overloaded with fruit. We pulled about 50% of the fruit off of here. We probably should have actually pulled more. It fruited very, very young. It fruited at a year old, and it's been fruiting heavily ever since. So a very, very sweet, just wonderful tasting fruit. Very, very good variety, very high production. So the next variety here for your mandarins, this would actually be your gold nugget mandarin. This mandarin is actually fruiting for the first time for us this year, so don't have an idea yet what the fruit quality is going to taste like. However, production, very, very good production on this tree. This tree, you can see just a wonderful looking tree. Productivity, there's fruit all over the place. We got several dozen fruit on this tree. At a couple years old, production looks fantastic. So next up would be a Pixie Mandarin. You'll see that behind me here. Now this tree, again, a couple years old, a fantastic looking tree. However, we don't have a single fruit on this. We didn't even get any flowering on this tree this year. So this one, not 100% sure. I think we will probably try it. However, no production on it yet. The next variety would be an Noir Satsuma. So now this tree, as you can see, is really, really struggling. So it actually has a lot of protection back here. It's between our loquat and our Pixie Mandarin here. You can see the Daisy Mandarin back here in the background. But this tree has struggled from the very beginning. Now this tree we did get from Costco. We've struggled with Costco trees. I know the rootstock is inferior. There's no question about that. This is an Noir Satsuma. One of the things that we were discussing with Reed at RSI Growers when we were giving him our list of citrus trees, he did say that Satsuma varieties are very, very difficult and very temperamental. So we probably won't try a Satsuma there, only because they need a much higher humidity that obviously we just don't have out here in the desert. So this one, really going to be a struggle. So next category of fruit, we're going to basically just lump into grapefruit. We've got a couple of those varieties here. What you're going to see behind me here would be a ruby red grapefruit. We really like this variety. It's a fantastic tasting variety. The tree itself is just overproductive. We've had to thin this tree very heavily for the last couple of years. It was productive at an early age. It's just a very, very productive tree. Gives you nice big red fleshed ruby, of course, grapefruit, but a fantastic producer. Really love this tree. So what you see behind me here would be a pomelo. So this is actually the Chandler pomelo. One of the things about our pomelo tree, you can see it's a little stunted. The reason for that is our frost. So this tree really struggled through the frost. In fact, we thought we may have lost it. All of the leaves died back on this tree. We did get a little bit of production, so we did get a couple of pomelos off of it last year. Wasn't really impressed with the fruit quality. However, it is a very young tree, and I think we actually picked them just a little bit late. However, it really struggles with our winters out here in Whitman. So once we got down into the 20s, this started getting a tremendous amount of dieback. So this one I think is questionable. So next up would be limes and lemons. So what you see behind me here would be our Bear's lime tree. That's B-E-R-S-S. So the Bear's lime. The Bear's lime is a fantastic variety of lime for us here in Arizona. Extremely productive. This tree is overproductive. However, because of the fruit size, you don't need to do much in the way of thinning, so it's an extremely low maintenance tree. We essentially prune for shape more than anything. We have to thin zero because once the tree starts producing fruit, you can start harvesting as soon as they're probably about the size of a golf ball. So you can get very early production, have production all through the summer and into the fall. Very heavy production, very low maintenance, a fantastic variety for us here in Arizona. So next up would be our Meyer Lemon. It's gone. So we don't have a Meyer Lemon anymore. This tree actually died back. I'll link the video for you here if you want to take a look at it. But this was the home of our Meyer Lemon tree. It struggled from the very beginning. I know Meyer Lemons can be very temperamental, having done some research on it now. The fruit itself, the tree itself was actually very productive when it was alive. But the tree is now gone. So not too sure whether that was rootstock or the variety itself. I do know that Meyer Lemons can be temperamental, so they can be a little bit difficult to grow. Fruit quality was okay, and production was decent. So whether or not we'll try this, I'm not too sure. What you see behind me here is a Eureka Lemon. This tree has been just abused. We originally had it in the same spot as the Meyer Lemon, transplanted into a pot in the middle of summer a couple years ago, and then finally put it in its permanent home up here. The tree is planted in horrible soil right up here in front of the house, but it is doing fantastic. We actually had to thin this tree about 70%, so we took the majority of the fruit off of this tree because it was such heavy production. It was pulling the entire tree down. It's at the front of the house, so we didn't want to have that from a visual standpoint. We didn't want to have that happening. So we did thin it very, very heavily. However, still producing really, really well. We have several dozen fruit on here still. Very high productive tree and very good fruit quality. So now that we've covered all of the different citrus varieties, let's dig down into the nitty-gritty and decide on varieties. So really for me, focusing on the two key priorities of production and low maintenance, for me the first thing that comes to mind would be limes and lemons. Now, the reason why I say that is they're very, very productive trees. They're extremely low maintenance. You can essentially let them go and you don't even have to thin for the most part. And they're also very useful. These are varieties that you can be harvesting when they're green, in the case of lemons, and of course limes. However, you can harvest them all summer long and into the fall and winter. So you have an extremely long harvest season. They're very, very useful. Obviously, you can use them in cooking. You can use them to make drinks. You can use them to make wine. So for me, if you were going to decide on one or two trees, a lime and a lemon would really be your go-to. We've talked about the Bear's lime today. We've also talked about the Eureka Lemon. Those would be my two go-to varieties for you here in Arizona. So next up would of course be your oranges. I think that is the focus for all of us. If I had to narrow it down to one variety, I would take an Arizona sweet variety over any other orange tree here in Arizona. Choose which variety you want. We do really like the Trivita. That's the one we're going to go with because we have experience with it, but you really can't go wrong with any of the Arizona sweet varieties. After that, if you're a fan of mandarins, which we are, the Daisy Mandarin, hands down, would be your best bet. When you're looking at grapefruit, the ruby red grapefruit, I think any of the grapefruit varieties would be fine. We like the ruby red because it has a sweeter flavor than the other grapefruit varieties. But again, any one of those grapefruits, I think you'd be just fine here in Arizona. Overall, when it comes to citrus, I think one of the key things with citrus forests here in Arizona is getting the right rootstock. We've talked a lot about reeded R-side growers, but there are multiple nurseries here in Arizona that actually grow their trees here. There's one on the east side of town. I think it's Greenfield Nursery, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, Reed on the central and west side of town would be a great option as far as getting the right rootstock. If you get the right rootstock and you choose the right variety, you know, you're here in Arizona. Citrus is one of our 4 C's for the state. Man, you just got to go for it. Fantastic trees to put in the ground. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. Instagram and Facebook, we post content there you won't see on the YouTube channel. And our Amazon page, I'll leave a link down in the description. That is a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you. No, you're right. That's weird. That's two different. That's true.
It's like you just want to put them together.
I need more coffee apparently because this is a blood orange. That's a cara. Okay, let's try that again.